um, mentorship, and also being able to strategize. Like imagine graduating 25 PhDs, they all have different personalities, different things that you need to employ, different strategies to help them. 78 master students and over 100 undergraduate researchers, including REUs.
Mhm.
So her work focuses on programs. She works with many programs that improve computer science education. She was the co-PI of the NSF IMCS Alliance, and she's also the co-PI. She was the co-PI of NSF STARS Alliance. I'm going to just let her talk because you've heard how amazing she is. So thank you so much, Dr. Seals, for
Oh,
joining us.
man, guys, I am so excited to be here today. I'm sorry that that I was running behind. Today, I did not realize I had three workshops today, and but this is one of my favorite topics. So we can go on to the next slide: mentoring to build practices for confidence and empower mentees. So we can continue. So when I think of mentoring, thanks again, Dr. Kyla, for that amazing introduction. One thing that I do too much of is mentor. And and I think that I do it because when I was a student, I went to a small historically black college and university, Grambling State, for undergrad. And even though it was historically black in my department in computer science, there were no African American, Hispanic American, or women that taught computer science in my department. And so I didn't have a woman professor until my PhD advisor, Mary Beth Rosin, at Virginia Tech. And so with that, it can be nobody wants to be a unicorn because nobody, no matter what they tell you, oh, wow. Okay. So nobody wants to be a unicorn. And what happens is sometimes just by affinity, sometimes you may be left out of groups. And so, but what we'll discuss today is imposter syndrome, balancing guidance and independence, thinking about students from all different diverse identities, thinking about really good support and fostering a safe space. Now, when I think about diverse identities, um, you can't always assume that everybody is the same. So I am from the South, from Louisiana. I grew up in a home with Christian values, but what happened is I have to celebrate all the spiritual aspects of my students, whether they're that from that coloring or different. And so I try to remember, all of the different holidays, because if I want somebody to take off for my holiday, we need to take off for yours or take off for none of them. And so aspect is unwavering support, constructive feedback, fostering a safe space. Now, one thing I'll say before we go to the next slide, as you're being a mentor, and I didn't get people to, let me see, maybe raise your hand. And I don't know if I can see this. If we have, how many are students in the group? I don't know if you put that in chat. You maybe put that in the chat. If you're a student, put an S. And if you're a faculty, put an F. If you're an administrator, put an A. So if you're a student, put S if you're a student. But you might be student and faculty or administrator. For myself, I guess I'll put for myself. Oh, I picked my hand up. Uh-oh. So faculty, lots of faculty. And so what happens, as we are mentoring, you have to remember work-life balance. And so what happened is sometimes it's very challenging to also have work-life balance when you're being a good mentor. So now I actually have multiple PhD students finishing this summer. I don't know how it happened, but I have 5 students who've been here for 5 years and they're all finishing this summer. And so what happens is one or two of those people, at least two, work full time. And so what happens is some of our meetings are not at traditional meeting times. I have one student that's in California. So sometimes we meet at 7 a.m. on a Saturday because he likes to get up super early. He's in California. So 7 a.m. for him is 5 a.m. is before his kids. He has a house full of kids. And so being a great mentor means meeting people where they are, but but I don't meet him at other times. So during the week, I save those times for other people. He may have those strange spots in times where, but I set those hours. So as I said, I like to go to church. So I don't meet anybody on Sunday. But if it's an emergency, I might meet someone after dinner on Sunday. So even though you want to be a great mentor for your sanity, you have to have good work-life balance. So when I was a new faculty, I didn't have that boundary as much, but as an older faculty, I'm going to church on Sunday. Can't meet Sunday morning, but I can if in a pinch for those that are working full time. I can meet you after dinner. Okay, so let's move on to the next. Okay, so the core of mentoring is building confidence, and surprisingly, I don't know how this happened. I'm working with the REU this summer. She is a sophomore. Now I'm like a sophomore. And so what happened? I was not paying attention. If I had known she was a sophomore, I would have said no because the younger you are, sometimes in computing, the less confidence you have because you're in a group with most of my group are senior people. They have many years of programming experience. And so, building confidence, you have to tell people to do what you're good at, and you can't worry about what everybody else on the team is doing. You have to figure out how to improve your baseline. So, let's go on to the next slide. And so, when we think about it, that lack of confidence may be a part of the imposter syndrome. And for those who don't know the imposter syndrome, it's a psychological term thinking about a pattern of behavior for those who have internalized a fear about being exposed as being a fraud. And so what happened, I think at sometimes in some different parts of the year, even though I've published a lot, graduated a lot of people, sometimes I would have this imposter syndrome just pop up. And so we want to think about said 70% of people experience this at some time. So I'm not alone. It affects women and people of color more as they're underrepresented in their profession, and it affects graduate students very often. Now, I think when I was an undergrad, I don't remember having this imposter syndrome. But I guess as an undergrad, a lot more of the people looked like me. I had a lot of students that looked like me in my HBCU. I hadn't been affected by those bad grades or getting somebody to tell me that I wasn't successful or getting all those red marks on your paper. But in graduate school, I started getting those red marks, a lot more red marks on my paper. That's people that less affinity groups that I could spend time with, and so that affects us. So how to help a student not be impacted by the imposter syndrome. So how do we increase our confidence? What do we do about it? And so first, you have to recognize that it's a problem. You have to think about and you have to be careful who you tell this to. So you really want to express that self-doubt in a safe space. Some people need a lot of people. Some people are really connected to your family. So you can call someone at home, call a parent, and and talk about that to your family or close friends for encouragement. And so what happens is um, sometimes you have to do what you got to do to get what you want to get. And so if you get paralyzed by self-doubt, you can't make it to your next stop on your academic or your life journey. And so all you have to do is, and so with computer scientists, we learned early that you have to bounce. That if when you run into a wall, your syntax is off, it doesn't compile, my machine crashes like it did today. That when your machine crashes, don't be paralyzed. Just keep moving forward. And you've been successful to make it to this point. If you are a graduate student, you have been successful at so many points along the way, all through K-12, through your undergrad. If we're faculty, we've been successful enough to get beat up during graduate school, or you either been beat up or you loved it, or a little bit of both. I think you love it. You have to love it enough to finish that PhD. And for those that are in graduate school working on your PhD, what so my question is, what is the best type of PhD? What's the best type? And you can put this in chat. What's the best type of PhD? The one that has the most pages. Done. So somebody said a PH done. So a done one is the best. So if you get paralyzed by fear, self-doubt, you'll stop taking action. If you really get to a place where you can't move forward, there's always professionals. Doctor cannot heal thyself. You may have to find professional help, someone to talk to, a pastor, a psychologist, someone that you can talk to help you, give you strategies to get past this paralysis. And we want to think about yes, and so good methods. So we want to think of good methods for moving forward. Sometimes people, you lose your place, and you have to think about, what can I do to keep me on track. One point when I was a graduate student, I was really a little frustrated, and I'll probably ask you guys for examples of this. How do you get out of this? For those who felt this doubt, how do you get past this? So for me, I think at one point I felt a little beat up. And so what I would do is, this may sound silly, I would print out pictures of the loveliest flowers that I could find. So I would just print out tulips, print out roses, and I would put them on the wall on my desk, and just said, and there was a J, and there's like Nike, just do it. I would put on my wall this JF DI, just do it. And so, and also, and one of the other strategies, somebody asked me a question, just give yourself a break. Yes. And so, they asked me a question. If you have something really big to accomplish, so say you had to eat, wow. Say you had to eat a frog. There's two frogs you have to eat today, right? There's two frogs you have to eat, a big one and a little one. Which one would you eat first? So there's two frogs. You have to eat them. You have to eat them today. Which one do you eat first? So this speaks to your strategy. Sorry, somebody got me. They said somebody said both they like frogs. And so, but what happened is that looks at your strategy. Some people, even though it might be something that you don't like, you may choose the bigger challenge first. And so sometimes it may be easier to knock off those small things on your checklist so that you feel that you're making some forward movement. But for some, you don't want that big thing as a bottleneck. So figure out your personal style of moving forward. If little things will help get your momentum, do those little things first. And you want to make sure you strategize and don't leave out an A task. You just can't. So if I press strategize an A, B, and C level task, an A is something that has to get done. You can't keep putting that off, even though you get the momentum from those C tasks. At some point, you still have to handle that A task. And so this is a quick question for everybody. What do you do to help you to move forward? And you can say it or you can text it. So thank you all. We got some good ones in the chat. And so when you're paralyzed by doubt, have your strategy to move forward. Have a strategy to move forward. And so somebody said, among these strategies, somebody said, oh, this is wonderful. Somebody said, I would visualize myself crossing the stage during convocation, wearing I guess, my regalia and everything with the music playing. Then I was able to do a bit more work after that. So that is really good. Um, Yes. So we got to keep moving forward. So this is on your dissertation and getting it done, but also anything. Just anything. If you're trying to get a paper done, I am really bad about waiting to the last minute on papers. But I've tried to get strategies for that. So for mentoring for faculty, I usually try to have teams. I work better when I am accountable to someone else. This has really helped me with my writing. And so when I get stuck, I try to work with a group. And if it's a group of 4 or 5 of us, then it's usually different days when somebody will be down. I had one of my most prolific groups. We had 3 people, and one was the best writer, but for a semester our best writer was down because his wife had a baby, and because he was not getting a lot of sleep, he's like, I'm so sorry, I can't write as much. I said, don't worry, we have you. And so what happened, having a team can really help you, and that was really helpful for me. Or someone said different foods, different ways to reward yourself when you make that positive step forward. And so you want to make sure that you aren't just doing things. Everybody has some type of um, um, I can't think of the right word. It's not collateral. Everybody has the right things that you need credit for. So if you're thinking about in an institution or for the PhD, you may need papers. You need that PhD done. And so if you're thinking about I guess, the currency of your field or your currency of your occupation. So if you are a student, papers, and getting your degree done would be your currency. For faculty, it may be papers, grants, doing service. It's based upon your university. You want to count those beans, but you want to count them in the right categories. Also, even though in most cases we don't get beans for mentoring. We do it to give back and to foster our community. So that is a holistic bean that I like to collect, but you have to make sure that you also collect the beans that are the currency of your institution. If you're an administrator, you may have to have mentored or had to process so many awards. So you want to make sure that you are um, counting beans in the currency of your organization. And one thing that I have to make myself do, they say publish or perish. And because the currency of most institutions are publishing, we in our new normal, we have to figure out what do we do about grants. So for my institution, we had a lot of NSF grants. So we may have to diversify. We may have to approach more companies to figure out how can I still, if grants are still a part of that currency, how do I pivot? How do I make whenever you run into something, don't be paralyzed in this. We have to think about our past successes. We may have to look at other opportunities. We may have to pivot slightly, but this works for faculty and students. I go to our next slide. So when we think about effective
Sorry, guys, I think we lost her. Just give us 1 second. Well, I want to wait on Cheryl to come back, but I also don't want to waste your guys' time. So, if you have any ideas of how you can create environments that normalize being vulnerable, that you have utilized, maybe you could put it in the chat and then we'll go to the next slide and look at some of those ideas.
All right, we have some good messages in the chat. Raj said that talking about when they get things wrong or make mistakes, normalizing failure. I definitely agree with that. It helps people to see. I know sometimes students may feel like they need to be perfect or they don't want to get found out that they're not. And if you just sort of, if you're vulnerable and say, hey, I didn't get this thing right, I don't know what I'm doing, or, whatever it is that for the situation, it helps them to develop that as well. Nuria, hi Nuria. Nuria said sharing experiences that might resonate. Um, Chioma said in our lab before talking about research, we all go through talking about our week and any personal wins or fails we may have faced. That's a good one too. Because sometimes people in the room can also help speak to the fails and turn them around for others. And Daryl said, I wouldn't say I know how to create them, but I tend to find them a lot at conferences when talking to other graduate students. Yeah, and I think that's another reason why community is so important because if you don't have anyone to talk to, you might feel like you're just failing by yourself and everybody else is doing well. Then you talk to other people, and guess what? Nobody knows what they're doing, but you walk and help each other to figure out what's going on because everyone's good at something. And if you have complementary skill sets, you can definitely get a lot done. James said when she mentioned eating frogs, do you think she meant the whole frog or just the legs? I think that came from, there's a book called Eat That Frog, and it's about time management. Some of you may have heard of it. I usually, no, I think my copy's at home. I was going to pull it out from over there, but it's basically about if you know you have to do something hard that day, every morning eat a frog, basically. So by the time you've eaten the frog, you've done the hardest thing that you have to do all day. So the rest of the day is downhill. So it's about like attacking, and she's mentioned that as well, like attacking the biggest thing first, so that you can get everything else done instead of like kind of doing really small tasks that don't really make much progress. Raj said it's also building trust and relationships with students as individuals so that they feel comfortable opening up. It's a very good point. Yeah, because if they don't trust you, they're not going to open up to say what might be troubling them. And then Rua said that just will add to me only doing the only doing the big thing and never getting to the small things, small, sometimes urgent things. No, that's a good point too. So when we say small, small is, I guess, relative in terms of like the importance to us and how quickly it needs to be done. Some of you may have been familiar with like the Eisenhower matrix. I think Ben in the last session may have he touched on it, and there's these axes about importance and urgency. So yes, sometimes something is small, but it is a fire. So still put out all the quadrant one, the small fires, and then you can get to the big things that lie in other quadrants. And Arpita said, I have the opposite problem. Students open up too much. I have no clue what to do to help them as I do not have the resources. Wow. I don't know. I would say it's good that they have that comfortability for you, but I'm assuming you're a woman, but oftentimes women, people of color, we get a ton of requests for mentorship and students feel comfortable with us. Yeah, women of color. So we tend to have students that gravitate towards us because they feel comfortable for whatever reason. And yeah, oftentimes we may not have the skill set. Like just because I'm nice and I can listen to you and you feel comfortable doesn't mean I can help you with your problem. So um, I generally try to, that happens to me a lot. Like that couch, I have students that'll just stop by and just sit on my couch. They don't want anything, but they'll just stop by. But yeah, I'm always joking. I'm saying, hey, I'm a mandatory reporter, so just be careful what you say. But I always refer them to counseling services if I have no idea what to tell them, because I just keep a list of resources as I come across them and like learn about them to be able to help other students with. Rua says, I am also the bucket for the panicked gaze and burnout neurodivergence. I'm like, honey, we all need therapy and I'm not it. Yes, let's all go walk over to counseling and wellness services. Um, and you're absolutely right. Those services oftentimes aren't too effective. I don't know about your university. Ours is definitely overrun with counseling, but they added onto the graduate students grad care health plan virtual psychology. What is it? Virtual therapy appointments through, I believe, like Better Help or something. I think that's what it's called. And that is a nationwide program. So hopefully they do have the capacity that the Counseling and Wellness Center may not have. Rua said they send all our students to Better Help and it's trash. Oh, great. So now we're back at the same problem. See, I told y'all I don't have the answers. I can talk about the problems, but never promise to have the answers.
I think Cheryl might be back. I see.
Yay, Cheryl's back. Okay.
I'm so sorry. My whole computer just crashed.
Oh my goodness. You were going through it today. All right. Well, I'm just gonna hop myself off the stage and you have the floor.
Oh, sorry. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Oh, and sorry about that. We stopped on effective mentoring is a balancing act. So when I think about the my lab, I have a different strategy for different people. So when they are more senior, I get them to actually work with the more junior scholars, and so they've already gone through learning the process, learning how to summarize research papers, learning how to work together. And I can have the more mature people in the team, they can teach the more junior. Now when it's usually someone that's just beginning, we have to start all the way from the beginning and think about those practical strategies to help them get started. And so, well, let's continue to the next slide. And so, what if you now? One thing is, I'm a software engineer. And HCI person by heart. And so what we do is what do we want to accomplish in a week? And so if you think about like a scrum or like a stand-up meeting, what we'll do on Mondays is we'll try to put together sort of like part of our burn down list. What will we accomplish for this week? And so then what we do on Friday, we have a Friday sort of report out meeting to say this is what I accomplished this week. And so what happened is what can interfere with their success on that next week. And so generally, those are bottlenecks. Can you get someone to help you with those bottlenecks to provide? Because sometimes when you have younger scholars, sometimes they hate to ask questions. Sometimes they get stuck on things and they don't even let people know that they are really having a hard time. And so this self-reflection is a real good key to developing independence. So I find with some of my younger students, they may not ask this question well of themselves. So we should really ask them, how are you feeling? So sometimes I'll use a number gauge. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about the progress you're making or being able to accomplish that in the next week. And so that really helps them because, and if they are at a low number like a 7, so what can you do to get to an 8 next week? So that's sort of like our informal way of sort of like just checking in, because they're not expecting that number to come in, but over time they say, oh, she's going to ask, where are you, what's your temperature this week? And so how can you build some type of relationship with your team? Now, we haven't read more social books, but we have read some academic books together. One that we're looking at now is the Introduction to LLMs, to Large Language Models. So we're actually going through that together. And then have a regular informal get together. And so with a big group, we don't do this as often because scheduling is hard. And so, but I also try to attend my conferences with mentees. So what I do is when I go to conferences, when I see that there are good opportunities for students to attend, I try to get them to apply, or we try to go to conferences together. And also, I just try to talk to them about life, because what happened, there's a difference between sort of a mentee, a mentor, and an advisor. An advisor is telling you strictly how to get through the academic process. A mentor, a mentor is really asking about what are your professional goals. So for my PhD students, I really ask them, so what is your plan? So are you planning on going into academics? Are you planning on to going into a corporate? So what happened, it does make it a little different of a strategy. So when I have someone who's really thinking about going into corporate, we have to somehow plan in at least a summer or a portion of a semester where they can do some type of corporate internship, because many companies want to vet you first before they hire you. And so we generally have a team where it's 3 or 4 people working together. So if we have it organized well, then we can actually have it where someone can be missing from the team in the summer, and it will not be detrimental to the progress of the team. And so building meaningful relationships, it does create trust, because and you don't do it just to ask those questions. You really do it because it helps you to better indicate what is the direction that we plan on moving in. And so so this is the thing. You won't be perfect. And but you want to think about what is the valuable part of your support. Many of my mentees said that they would not have made it through this process without me. I'm sure they would, but there must be something. I always try to value each individual, not trying to, and it's hard for faculty because we think we know everything, and we're trying not to overshadow another person's thought or way of doing something. I say, you just have to prove it to me. If you can find it in the literature where somebody else is doing X, and you can take this another step and it's going to be great, then we're good. But you just can't just say that this is going to work without evidence. And so we have to be a little flexible in this. So we won't be perfect as a mentor. Our students won't be perfect as mentees. And then we always want to really support them as much as we can. So there is so in that unwavering support, we want to acknowledge our mentees. And what happens is this does take time. And so I try to send to my mentees and to my advisors when there are things that they can apply for. And then also provide good letters, strong letters of support for those type of things. I had 2 of my mentees, 2 of my doc students get university level awards for either work in their academic community or being a great researcher. So I had 2, but with those 2 mentees, that means they needed to be made aware of those opportunities. We both needed to follow through as far as them doing having enough time to do a quality application, me setting aside time to review and create letters for that. And so one thing is trying not to overdo. Like I overdid today. I had too many things on my schedule. And so what happens if you're telling someone that, yes, I can do a letter of support for you, do that letter. And the sooner the better, because we'll forget. If it's not on my calendar, it's forgotten. And so we want to have support our mentees, support our other colleagues, give them recognition of their strengths. Because what happens, some people, that imposter syndrome does slip in, and sometimes for faculty, we do think we know everything, and so it's easy for us to maybe and I know it's not about feelings or how someone's feeling, but sometimes for those that don't know how to bounce as well, it can slow down their progress. So we have to think about, you should know the individuals who you can be a little more abrupt with, who you have to give them a teaspoon of sugar with the medicine for it to go down, and just knowing, spending a little time, that helps you out. And then also have, say, clear expectations for your communication, and have timelines. And so one thing that I really like to do, and since and this might not, I don't know, and I have to ask you guys how you all do it. And so one thing that I do is I actually do a Canvas page, like for all of my doc students that are doing research, and I have sort of like a grade, like a letter grade for the semester. And I have sort of like 4 milestones. And one is sort of like the first milestone is your plan. What's your plan for the semester? So or I guess that's 5. So they have a plan for the semester. So that's 20 points. And then they have to do, I guess, their initial literature review, and they have to turn that in, and we have to review that together. So that way we have at least 4 or 5 points to let them know that they are making, that's our clear expectations for making progress toward your degree. So at the end of the semester, you would want this, 80 or 90 or 100. If there's someone who has not met those expectations, they need that. We do not communicate well. If you have a 0, you need to find another advisor, because we are not communicating. So that gives you boundaries of communication, so we both understand the timeline. And that really keeps you from getting stuck, because you can tell your advisor anything, but within yourself, if you are making progress. But with my Canvas checkpoint, I keep track of, are we at least at the paperwork level, are we keeping track? Okay. And so when we think about our mentees, we want to value their identity and foster success. So next slide. And so when we think of, well, we won't have all the answers, but sometimes conversations can really help. Conversations, connections, making sure that you expand your boundaries. Sometimes it's really good to go to different conferences. You always want to, even if it's sharing with other students, just to sort of make sure that you have good connections. I remember in my last year of my PhD, I think I was, what do you say, over it. I was pretty much done with my PhD, but I had a peer group that I worked with, and that peer group, I could tell them, yes, I made X, Y, and Z progress, but I knew within myself that, hey, since the last time we met monthly. Since the last time we met, I really didn't make any real progress. And so nobody, if it's a big group or a peer mentoring, they don't know exactly what I'm working on. They were at different institutions, but having our leader for that group, the mentor for that mentee group, saying that you can't be perfect. You have to be done. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so when we think about the mentees and the mentors' awareness, sometimes there is a disconnect between the two. And so there needs, well, this is easier when I do it with my REUs. So generally have a contract of what I expect from my REUs, and they can put what they're expecting out of their experience, and then midway through we can check if we are both in alignment, if we're still headed in the same direction. Are these things actually matching up? Okay. Okay, so these are some do's. So valuing diverse identities as assets. So there are a couple of these. So we want to think about wow. And so you have to be careful with students. You have to make sure, because sometimes they will not say. And one thing that I have a problem with is a lot of younger students these days, they are on their phones. And so I have one that they're always in their phone. So I'm not seeing their eyes. So I really have to call their name and get their attention to get them off of their phone. And so that was a little bit of a problem for me, but it's just a new generation. Maybe it's just me. And so I don't know if anyone else has, and for the next bullet, is thinking about their attitudes, their practices, thinking about different social cues, body language, cultures that are different from your own. And then for the next, and then one thing, the next bullet is power dynamics. And this is so as a faculty, I've been a faculty for a long time. So the power dynamics are that until people get comfortable with you, they may not bristle as much. But as they get more familiar with you, like my senior doc students, they've learned that they have to stand up for themselves. I understand their body language when they're getting discouraged, etc. And so a quick question about this for in the dues. Um, in the dues, are there any social norms that you've seen in younger students? I would guess since one thing that I've had a hard time with since 2019 or since COVID, um, and parking is a problem on campus. It is. We used to live in the lab, live in the lab before 2019. But since then, we all got accustomed to working at home, doing a lot more telecommuting. But the only problem is some students they may not realize it. Even I guess maybe even may realize that they are less productive if they aren't in a place where they are assigned to do work. And so I guess that's multiple questions. Have you seen any things about their work, I guess about their behaviors, body language, attitudes toward work that may be different than they were a couple of years ago? And I'll look at my chat to see if you have any, if you guys, okay, okay. Oh, that's nice. And so 100% at home and teach 100% online. Okay. And so for me, we do a lot more remote work. And so sometimes I do miss being in person more. So it is challenging. I've tried to even go to having hybrid. So for a while, we would have everything would be virtual, even the PhD final defenses. Now I've gone to more of a hybrid posture where make it an option, make it well almost mandatory for the PhD and myself to be in the room, but then up to the committee, they could either be in person. Um, okay. Yes, and so this one says I have unconditional hybrid access to to classes and lab meetings. And so this is a quick question about class. If your classes are hybrid, do students come to class? And so this is a challenge too. I think in some cases, we have less students coming to class because they've gotten used to the hybrid medium. Okay. And so these are a couple of the do's. But then if we look at the do nots, So we don't want to focus on performance, not on performance specifically. And you don't want to be colorblind. And so, yeah, so you don't want to be colorblind because everyone is different. Because there are some mannerisms that students have from different areas, and you just have to get used to those different mannerisms. So, because and don't be colorblind. You want to think about people's successes, celebrate the successes that they have, and then you want to also we want those and so don't leave those high stake relationships to chance. And so be intentional. So the thing is, be intentional. Try to have a worldview. Um, don't always assume that people are I also okay, and so veteran and active military, I did have some students that would have to miss on the weekends, so I would have to make sure that my assignments were due like on a Thursday or a Wednesday or Thursday when I had or even if they had special permission, I might adjust their schedule just a little bit because we had some weekend warriors or people who just worked on their military service on the weekends, and so we had to make some adjustment for those things. And so with our students, we just have to be think about sort of try to develop a worldview. Their culture may be different. My culture is hybrid. My culture is hybrid. In the summer, say I'm in my office today, and so I like to, in the summer, I don't have class. So I pick 2 or 3 days that I'll be in, 2 or 3 days that I'll be home. So this week, this is Thursday. So Tuesday, Thursday, I would be home. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I would be in the office. And I found that using the hybrid helps me be a little more productive, but not okay. Yes, I had it running, had my that way it gives me a lot more time because people just can't drop by. And during COVID, I found that people would just could not drop by. So I gained so much time back in my day. And so now I have a little bit better control of my schedule. But I wanted to come into my office so that I would still have a better physical rapport with my students. And so on to the next. Okay. So if we're looking at our CARES model, this one is also looking at the competence. And so I don't know why it didn't come up in the right way, but I think of it's competence, takes chance, and then make sure you have some autonomy, show interest in their perspective. So this is the CARES model. Make sure that you are relatable. Now, everybody's personality is not warm, caring, and connected, but you still want to be have some equity in those relationships, be fair in your expectations, and have some type of structure so that hopefully we have a sort of agreement of how we're going to work. We have a schedule for our semester or for our week, and we are accountable one to another for them showing up and for me showing up for them. So we can go on to our next slide. Oh, and that is it. We're at the questions. Sorry, we have about 5 minutes left. Thank you all for joining us today at this mentoring session, Mentoring Mentors, sponsored by the CRA. And my apologies for technical difficulties. We have about 5 minutes for questions. And also, if you have suggestions in the area of creating a safe and empowering space, things that you do with students. Just think about things that you do to find out about students that are from different backgrounds.
All right, we'll take questions now. Also, please stay on. There is a poll that helps us to better serve you through these sorts of workshops. CRA works very hard on these, so please make sure you you submit that. So, any questions or even comments just on some of the things that we've discussed today?
Wow. And one thing that I would do at the end of semesters, we would have like a lunch, a nice lunch on just a nice lunch to share, like the end of the semester goals. So for my junior students, I would have them do this like a poster, almost like a poster session with lunch. So we would have lunch first to sort of try to have a better rapport with each other. Try to have people have partners that they work with. Some people work better with partners. I work much better with a partner. And so I don't know if there's suggestions for mentoring ways to get people out of their imposter syndrome. Uh,
All right, I think everybody, I take that as they got their questions answered and
okay,
they enjoyed the presentation. So thank you again so much, Cheryl. I know today was a busy, busy day for you, so we
I'm so
appreciate your
sorry.
time and expertise.
Thank you all.
All right, everybody, take care, and we will see you at our next session, which I believe, Lauren, is July the 17th or
Mhm.
18th, one of those two.
18,
Say that?
July
18th.
18th, Friday.
Oh, no,
Perfect.
not Friday. It should be a Thursday.
Yes,
Oh, is it a
Thursday's the
Thursday?
17th.
Mm.
Let me double check. Hold on.
Okay, thank you all.
Nope, it is.
Guys,
It is Friday. Thank you,
Yeah,
Sarah.
sorry so much
July
for
18th, Friday,
our
1
technical
p.m.
difficulties, but I hope you all got some good strategies. I have a large team, so I really have the seniors work with the mids, work with the intro students, but sometimes you do have to work a lot more with the intro students because they don't understand research and or that you're really just trying to figure out how to push the field forward, and that takes work because if you have some deficits in your everybody has something they need to improve on. And so for me, so what do you do when students don't like each other? Oh my goodness. Now what happened is um I had an instance, and I don't know if I can talk about this. I had a situation where students liked each other too much, and I was so one young man, I had to get him assigned to another lab because the young lady felt like that he was spending too much time with her.
man, I've never had a situation where students didn't like each other, but there has been like conflict between two students. And, my goal is I would meet with them separately first to figure out what is the issue that is
Mm.
what, and then I try to reframe things in terms of the purpose of the lab. And I try to, like, number one, they're not there to be best friends. Yes, it would be great if we can all get along, but this isn't real life. This isn't the working world. So like they may enter an environment where they don't get along with a coworker and like how would you handle that then? So um oh wow, I was at a university where a graduate cohort led to multiple divorces. Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot going on.
You have to
Ooh.
be careful because and I didn't know what to do because they both had access to the lab. So it was really uncomfortable because I had to ask the young man for his key back. I was like, I need your key. And because I heard that you made someone uncomfortable, because what happens, you can't have someone in an environment because that could be legal issues. If you have someone working in an environment where they are uncomfortable, then that means they stop coming to work. They could get depressed, and yeah, it's really challenging. I've been really fortunate that most of my students get along, and usually cohorts, if it's 3 or 4 in a cohort, they've usually been there together. Taking classes together. Um, my senior students now, right now, half of them are, like I say, are married. Half of them are married and have kids. And so for the ones that are married and have kids, they like to come to the office because they need that silence to be able to get some work done. And so that has brought some back to the lab because they have little kids at home. And so, yeah, so that's a documentary. Yes, yes. And so for me, yeah, I also work in the lab for regular hours because me being at home, home is time for a break, time to go work out, time for some TV, time for to cook something, and so for me, I really like having regular hours. I encourage my students to do that unless they are if they're seniors, self-regulated, self-motivated, and they can work in because they may have more quiet at home. And so if you know, yes, because home is another job for some. And so I have at least two students. They come to work every day because they have young ones at home. And I said, well, you're here every day. I said, well, I have four kids. One of them said, I have four kids at home. I can't. And so, yes. So some of the things that we're talking about go beyond advising, that go into mentoring. Sometimes if they have problems, you have to bring in a third party. So for this one with the key situation, I brought in a third party. I let our graduate, the person that's over our graduate program know that those, I didn't want to just be in my court. I had to let somebody else know that it was a problem. And yeah, because you don't want something to happen and on your watch, you know. And so we're not their parents, and sometimes we get that. So I'm you know, in computing, my department is pretty traditional. We don't have many women in my department, so we have a lot of international students. Some oh. Interesting. That is cool. So I might date myself, but I think yeah, we might be in that same we might be in that same cohort. And so you're really careful with your students, have to be really careful, and hopefully they make it out together. A lot of my students are still, they probably didn't like me at the time. Some of them didn't like me at the time, but now they see the result of the process. We're not trying to be perfect, like one of our mentoring slides said. I can't be perfect. You can't be perfect, but we want you to just be done. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
But everybody have a great day. And I see James was he said we might be classmates. That's
that's
dating
so
us a whole
funny.
bunch.
He
But
was in the band with you too, maybe.
oh my
I'm
goodness, I was
joking.
in the marching
I'm
band as well.
joking.
I was in the marching band. Yeah, but I would have to
Thanks.
reach out and contact. What organization are you at? Are you currently working? Well, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm Cheryl D. Seals on LinkedIn.
Thank
Okay,
you so much again,
Thank you.
Cheryl.
Columbia. Okay,
All
thanks
right.
everybody.
Bye,
I hate we
everybody.
couldn't see everybody, but I forgot this is a panel because there was a lot more people here than I realized. But thanks everybody for a great session. And let me know if I need to come back and make up because I know I had my computer actually crashed. And I'm like, and this is a
Okay.
pretty new Mac, and I don't know what happened.
We'll let you know.